Ian. Great man. I've really enjoyed his content for a while now. He has a lot of interesting things to say. And of course, we've got Trolls Bane as always for the trolls. And we've got our drinking horn for every time we want to have a good skull.
You have all the accoutrement that I want. You're living the life. You're living the life that I want. I want to be as cool as you. Clint is the
Yeah,
cool.
I just try to chill out, man. What's up, Timmy?
Very excited to be here. As I said, Clint has been
Skull to
a
Tim.
huge supporter of mine, showing up for as many of my lives, and I can't thank you enough. I'm a veteran with PTSD, and I don't really go out. I don't talk to people, but this man here, this person, this loving, generous soul, decided to be a human and to reach out and has always been there to support me through every single PTSD trigger, flare up, and all of my mental breakdowns. So thank you again, Clint. You've been an amazing person.
Oh, no problem, man. Thank you for what you did. And it's not that it's not so much for your service, your sacrifice. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm thanking you for the courage you had to step up there in the first place, because not a lot of people do have that strength. That takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of just straight up bravery and well, cojones. To be able to be like, you know what? I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna do something that could potentially end my life, that could potentially mess me up for the rest of my days. And you do it anyway. That takes some balls.
I decided to enlist in the military because I believe in America. I come from an immigrant family. My father came here, met the love of his life, had two beautiful children, and raised us in wealth, raised
Yeah,
us in a situation where we could receive the education and a lifestyle that he couldn't provide back where he was from. But thanks to him and my mother, who was American, I gained a healthy respect for my community. I've always been involved in food pantries and soup kitchens, helping the homeless. I plant things in gardens. I try my hardest to give back to the ecosystem. So when the opportunity came to join the military, I jumped in wholeheartedly. And this is coming from someone who was training to be a dancer at Alvin Ailey. But there's a higher calling, and I say this to everyone, whether or not you join the military. I mean, that's a personal decision, but the decision to do something for your country, do something for your community, and show them that you care, show them that you want this society, this democracy to survive. That is something that is a statement that you must make in your life, no matter how you do it. But please make that statement, because there's not enough people who join the military at all. And there are not enough people who join the community and say, I want to make a difference
yeah. And you see, that's kind of the reason why I jumped on here. I can't really do much because I live off of disability. And I live off of $87 a month, $84 a month, somewhere around there. I've managed to save up about 40 something dollars so far. But you were talking about the system with PTSD and everything like that, and dealing with disability and everything. It took me 5 years to get on disability, even though they were like, no, you can't work because you got epilepsy and you got schizophrenia. It's documented. You can't do nothing. And some of my schizophrenia, some of the things that I see are actually trauma based from PTSD from abuse. And so I understand where you're coming from with PTSD problems. I also watched my grandfather go through PTSD from what he saw in the Vietnam War, and my other grandfather from what he saw in D-Day. So there's quite a bit of military in my family. So I have a high respect for anybody who attempts. I attempted myself, but I got blown up in basic training from a live grenade.
here. That's a hard
Yeah,
lesson.
Yeah, that's a hard. Okay, we can't have you anymore because you can barely walk straight.
That is a hard lesson. I appreciate everyone who at least tried. You know, there's something to be said about the attempt. Not everyone can be a Navy SEAL, and that's a fact. But there are several people who try and contribute, and if anything, when I went to basic training, my military training, I was a little rough around the edges. I mean, I'm a New Yorker, so
Yeah.
I wasn't suffering Texas fools.
By the way, football matches, you get your shout out, man. Larry, hi. I haven't been trying to ignore you guys. I've just been trying to have a good conversation with my friend here. What's up, Don Rich? How you doing, man? Thank you for enjoying the cup. My grandfather made that for me.
That is beautiful craftsmanship.
This was my first cow. I raised it. His name was Ribeye. So, in order to remember him, my grandpa took a horn and turned it into a drinking cup for me. And he put the rune for fertility and prosperity on it.
How much have you been drinking from that?
Water, water. But back in the past,
That's a big
there's been a
horn.
lot of meat drank out of this. I mean, a lot of meat. I live in an RV, guys. Yeah, that's why whenever you guys were all freaking out over the zombie apocalypse video, which yeah, y'all said I cheated. She said one thing. Well, guys, I'm never surrounded by just one weapon. As y'all can see, there's three right there. There's two beside me, and there's three underneath me. Texan, come on now.
I'm a huge fan of the Second Amendment because the world is a scary place, and American citizens always have a right to defend their own domain. And even when they're out and about, there are several people who have filed for things like a concealed carry, and these are people who are of sound mind and good judgment, and even so, they know when to safely extricate themselves from a situation. So, as long as you use good judgment, I've always supported gun rights in America. Even
Yeah,
though I have been highly critical about gun safety in schools, because I think that it's not an issue of the weapon, it is the issue of the person who holds it.
you see, that is true because you can say guns kill all day long, but put a gun in the middle of a room full of children, and nothing's going to happen until somebody touches that firearm. It's not just going to go off and suddenly shoot somebody. That's not how it works. What you got to look at is there's a failing medical system. There is a failing system for these people who are mentally challenged that are trying to get help, guys, and they end up snapping. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate. I'm trying to tell you what the problem is. What's going on. We don't do very well with mental health here in Texas. We don't take very good care of mental patients. So we snap, and it's easy to get your hands on a gun. So all they got to do is contact the right people, and it doesn't matter what the gun laws are. You take the way guns and weapons away from the innocent, and the only ones left with it are the criminals. They're going to get them no matter what. you know. So that's why I believe in home defense as well. But now, me, I just happen to have a bunch of weapons because I'm a collector. I happen to like them. I enjoy them. You
You're
know.
enjoying your civil liberties, and
Oh yeah.
as much as liberals and conservatives can battle it out, you have rights guaranteed by the Constitution, and that will never change. Never.
Oh yeah. And you see, I know what the Second Amendment actually stands for, which a lot of people don't. My grandpa hammered it into my head. He was real big into it because when he came back from Vietnam and he got screwed so bad. Vietnam veterans got really messed up when they came back. You know, he ended up researching the rights and getting a business lawyer to explain it all to him and everything like that. And, so he explained it to us kids really quick. So we know our rights clearly. And that's one thing that we were raised on is to make sure you know exactly what you're allowed to do. Guys, that's why this sword looks so beat up, guys. I've worn it everywhere. I can wear a sword. here in Texas. And people, they see a gun, they freak out. They see a sword, they're like, "That guy's crazy." You know, he's bringing a long knife to a gunfight. He must be something. He must be something. So it's a deterrent because guys, it's dull as it can be. There's no edge. So it's literally just a steel rod. It's just meant to look intimidating.
And that's how
Can
we
I put
have
an edge on it?
to
Yeah,
think about the issue of having guns in schools. We need to re-educate people that guns are not the enemy. Because policemen have guns, are you going to be afraid of policemen? Because we're instilling so much fear around the weapon that we're not engaging enough comprehension. Because people need to know that there is a responsibility when you take up defense or when you want to go for things that we took for granted in the past, like an education. You have to fight through a lot of ignorance in order to get an education. The fact that we
exactly.
have to fight through gun violence to get an education, that is another fight. And you need to be
And
able to say that you want to fight for that right to have that education.
I see that. I see where you're coming from. What I think is that they should reintroduce civics back into school.
Yes,
They
yes.
should reintroduce civics. And on top of that, they should have an optional, because I know some people don't like guns. They should have an optional gun safety course class specifically in school, like from ninth grade and above, when you're old enough to understand how to properly use a firearm. And they could use it with a 22, that's only got a quarter powder load, so it can't even kill you. It can't even go in, you know. So that's what we were trained on was 22s with quarter powder loads. It's good enough to pop a can, but that's about it. You know, and in fact, I got the 22 still sitting in there that I was trained with. And I I think that every child should be taught by their parents gun safety, should be taught by the education system gun safety, and should have to go through a gun safety course whenever they want to get a hunting license or anything like that.
I'm glad you brought up hunting. There is a different cultural understanding when it comes to weaponry and the sanctity of life when you become a hunter. When you become a hunter, you realize that there's an ecosystem there. You don't go there just to kill a buck or just to show off a trophy. What you do is you try and engage yourself as a physical person in the hunt, and that teaches you the difference between imagined stress and real stress, because that animal that you're chasing, that is the only thing that you focus on. You can shut out all of the noise that modern society teaches you, because the kids that are growing up right now, they want to take such a pacifist route that they don't fight for anything. I mean, they fight and they fail because they don't fight for anything anymore, because it's seen as such a terrible thing to be aggressive. It's such a terrible thing to own your power. And yes, a gun is a powerful tool, but there are other tools. But if you're not understanding what power is, if that's not explained to you in a safe manner with the permission of your parents, where are they ever going to learn that? Because you grow up as an adult and you'll never get that lesson again.
Well, you know, that's like saying, um, they when you take wood shop, one of the first things you're taught is a chisel is a stupid sharp tool, because it's meant for you to just barely push and it just shaves the wood. Well, you're taught extreme safety around that chisel. You know, what's the difference between that chisel and a firearm? Especially when it comes down to hunting. Because I'm a huge hunter. I've been hunting since I was 4. And yeah, I was out there with a BB gun. I was shooting robins, but we were eating them. we would fry them up or we would bake them up and we'd eat them. But I'd come home with like 20, 30 robins. but
That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do it for sustenance. And some people do it for sport, some people do it for skill, but you're supposed to do it because you realize that there's a part of that that you need in you in order to keep living. There's a balance there. It teaches you your place in the world. That's something you have to learn somehow. And when we're going to have that lesson, when we're going to start talking to people and say, we need to expect more from young people because you can't go into 18 and be so ignorant on how the world works, how power works, and how to function as an adult. Because adulting is really hard when you're
oh
40.
god,
When you are
oh
old,
god,
adulting is the hardest thing to do because you're supposed to learn that. People used to have entire households at 13. Responsibility. They ran their own business there. But now
people used to be
kids
married by 12.
kids are like 30 and they never moved out. I never moved out.
I'm not gonna lie, I've been on my own since I was 16. So yeah,
Congratulations.
well, it wasn't by choice.
Oh,
My stepmom threw me out of the house, and my dad agreed with it because me and my stepmom didn't get along, and he chose her over me at the time. Now me and my stepmom get along, mainly because that one's dead and I got a new one. But anyway, they threw me out the house, and I lived in a tent for 6 years. I graduated in that tent, so I had a hard road from the start. I didn't have anybody to teach me anything. I didn't know how to drive, none of that stuff. I didn't learn how to drive till I was 24. You know, but it's because I had to find a car, find somebody to help me put it together, and then I could learn how to. So sometimes you got to learn how to struggle, but that's why I try to spread so much wisdom as much as I can that I've learned here on my channel, because I've learned that I've got a lot of teenagers that watch my show. So and a lot of these some of these 20-year-olds that are only like 10 years younger than me, they have no idea what they're getting into or what they're doing. They're just like, it ain't gonna be the same forever. I'm still in college, let's rock this. No, sweetie, when you get out, life's just gonna be like, you thought you were good? No. No.
I feel that the American education system needs that reboot. They need to learn things like civics, they need to learn things like how to manage a bank account, how to apply
Civics,
for
economics,
an apartment, how to, just do basic things that
balance the budget.
budgeting. Like you're supposed to learn that from clubs, you're supposed to learn that from sports, but most people they never get that opportunity. And these are babysitting camps. Call it what it is. If you're a
Yeah.
parent, you send your kids to spend hours out of their day so you don't have to do it. And
The only thing
when
is
they
it gets
come
more
home, what do they
expensive
get from
to
it?
pay.
Do they get all the education, or are they getting less by going to school? I want to homeschool my kids. That's how strongly I feel about the American education system.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you, man, because they keep changing the way you do math. I can't help my niece learn how to do her math. Neither can her parents, because they changed up how you do it. So if we do it the way we did it when we were showed in school, they're like, no, that's wrong. You can't do it that way. Even though you get the same answer. Math is math. Come on now. And then here in Texas, they push the standardized test. They shove it, they shove it, they shove it. That's the only way to graduate from school. Doesn't matter your GPA, doesn't matter, how many AP classes you're in, college course, pre-college courses you got. If you do not pass those standardized tests, you do not graduate. Plain and simple.
I think we have to go harder. You see, when President Trump came into office, I was overjoyed because I said that this is the opportunity that America is going to
Jin's doing great.
Misunderstand, because he's doing things like dismantling environmental agencies, CDC, and the American education system, and he's firing a lot of these people. But you have to fire them because these schools need that 2.0. You really have to just revamp how we do the education system, because the kids that come out of it, I say, if one kid fails even a quiz, that whole class failed. You know why? Because every single one of them had to sit next to that person and not help them.
I understand that.
Where's the sense of community? Where is the sense of, you know what? You're going to have to go out into this world, and these people are going to have to be your neighbors. You might move to some other town, but America is defined by these schools. And when one person fails, we all fail. So we need to be strict. We need to raise the standards, because I don't want to go into the next year and say, I didn't try everything to explain change.org/save American students, the petition that I have to revamp the American education system to include things like civics, empathy courses through solar panels installed into the school, requiring the maintenance of children to learn how to do. Because when they go up, they're going to have apartments, they're going to have houses, and they're going to say, I have to pay an electric bill. I have to pay an electric bill when the sun is right there. A nuclear explosion going off in the sky that gives more energy than anything that they could ever produce here.
And yet we got to pay an electric bill.
And yet they have to pay an electric bill. No, I want kids to grow up knowing the sun is where you get your energy from. Here it is. Here's how it works. You maintain it. And by the time you graduate high school, you're an expert. You're an expert, which means if you want to pursue that as a career, you can pursue it as a career. But also, you have that as a skill for yourself. Because we never think this way in America, that we need skills for ourselves. We need skills that don't have anything to do with our job, but just maintain our lives so that we can do more with our money, because that bill, that electric bill, needs to go in America, because it is robbing our people. And I do not stand for that. This is why I became a community leader, because I said, after becoming a veteran, the fight continues.
There you go, man. Now, for those of all of y'all that are interested, because I've seen a few people say hi. Hello, everybody. Hello, Bubba. Hello, Dasher the cat. Hello, Timmy. Hello, everyone. That's all my friends. Everybody that's came in and continued watching this. We're interviewing my friend Ian Ileana here. I did say it right, right?
You did. That was amazing.
Yeah, Ian Ileana. So we're interviewing him. I've been watching him for a while, been a good friend of his. He's got a lot of good political views, guys, and he's got a lot of good understanding. So it's been awesome to have him here. We still gonna go for about another good 40 minutes or so, if that's cool with you, bro.
I'm cool to chill. I actually want to engage with more people about these real issues that America is facing, because I live in California, you live in Texas, right?
Southeast Texas, bro.
We shouldn't be just thinking about our own communities. We should be thinking about federally, nationally, what is going on in this country. Because the education system, you may disagree upon evolution being taught, you may disagree upon sex education being taught, but math is something that is fundamental. And I want math grades in America to go through the roof. I want every single American student to get an A in math, because you use it in everything. Basketball players are wizards when it comes to math. They are physicists, and if they're not getting college credit for the calculations that they do daily, that is a disservice to every single person who's an athletic professional.
Sorry, my girlfriend texted.
Hopefully,
But
someone did that. I
I
was trying to say that I want math scores to improve in America,
oh yeah,
because we
math
use
scores
math in
need to.
everything.
I was listening to you, brother. I gotta bring you a little closer though so I can see better. Oh man. But yeah, math scores and everything like that, that really needs to be important. because I'll tell you right now, I can't math. I can't math. I'm very bad at math. To be honest, but I have to use calculator. But anyway, that's why we need better math in school because otherwise you won't have guys like me sitting there going, "Okay, what's up?" Hang on just a second, guys. I'm on live. What's up?
Hi there, Baba.
Okay, 1.70K. That's 1.70 thousand people. That's 1,170 people, baby. Is 1,170 people, sweetie. My niece is freaking out over how many people are in my group now.
That's
Are
amazing.
on my channel. Now, sweetie, I'm interviewing somebody. Please let me go. Bye. Gotta love live.
I'm amazed that you can have the patience that you do to maintain a chat and to speak to your family. It's a lot of stress, and you handle it with such class. I'm really impressed, man.
Thank you. Especially when you have when well, I'm just gonna go on ahead and show you. I've showed you told you about my art before. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
go ahead and show you one of the things that I see. This is what I see as a schizophrenic. Here's one of them. And then I have this one in full color. These are some of the things I see. These are also from my novel. So those are illustrations that are going directly into the book. The first one was called a soul thief. The second one was called a voidling hunter. So I'm going to throw them in.
do you want a Western interpretation of that, or more of a Native American person's
I don't care
interpretation?
about. I can take one of each.
Okay, then I'll definitely give you both. Things like mental illness, from a Western perspective, are your way of processing things that you cannot control and things that may upset you. More Native American version of it is it's opening your mind to things that are important and that you need to pay attention to. Two
I
sides
understand.
of the same coin, because I think there's wisdom in both schools. I think there's wisdom in understanding the roots of where your mental difficulties come from, but there's also wisdom in trying to understand what it is trying to tell you. Because sometimes there are messages in the world that we ignore, patterns that we take for granted because we dismiss it as superstition or a gut feeling. But there are times when you have to listen to what's inside, and there are times when you do have to check in with people and make sure that what you're experiencing is real. But there is wisdom in having a bit of flexibility in a safe environment.
Yeah. No, I got something for you as a Native American. Me and my grandfather made this. Hold on. I think you might like this, brother. Me and my grandpa made this together.
That is tomahawk. That is
Even has a wolf.
impressive.
My grandpa made the head whenever I was little, and I did all this.
That is amazing.
Just a fun little toy. I thought it was a toy when I was a kid, but man, I realized I actually made something historically accurate to a degree. So I was like, that's going to get hung up on the wall. So it stays on my wall from now on as representation of my grandpa because he had a lot of Cherokee in it.
So you
So
do have some in you.
a little bit, not a lot, but about my mom was the last one if she knew the tribe. That's how much Cherokee I have in me. So
That's a little sad and reductive when I think of how we don't invite more people to learn their culture, their full culture, because there are cultural practices like singing, dancing, basket weaving, medicine rituals that we do in the Native American tribes that are very healthy. It's a very healthy lifestyle. It's a healthier lifestyle than kind of what we do right now, because a lot of us we sit down, we don't exercise, we don't engage in communal sharing sometimes. And I say this as a person with PTSD, so it's a little hard for me. But I think about how my life would be changed if I actually was more involved in my own community. I talk about my earrings all the time. These were gifted to me by my tribe, and
I only
I
got the one.
think
I only got the one.
I think of that as it's a link to your people and a promise that you have to keep within yourself that no matter how much percentage you think you have, that there is enough of a spark within you to explore it.
And you see, I explored some of mine. I found out I don't just have Comanche in me. I have Apache. You see, what ended up happening from what I was able to read up on was there was an Apache group that met up with the Comanches that took down Custard and Little Bighorn, and one of them was a man by the name of Many Wounds Rides at Dawn. He was actually featured in the video game Gun for PlayStation 2, but he was a real character, which freaked me out. This is how I ended up finding out that he was my ancestor. It was because I seen him on there and I looked him up just to see if he was actually a real character, and he turned out to be a real Native American, so it flipped me out. But he ended up getting a wife from the Comanches to help restart the Apache tribe since Custer rode through and wiped out their all their women and children. And that woman's name was Unale, and that was my ancestor.
Aren't you glad to know that there is so much history within you and there's more to explore and there's more for you to create? That the traditions and the history, it didn't end. The Native American culture still exists. It exists within us. It doesn't matter the color of our skin and how we've changed through the generations, but there is stories to be told and we have to write them.
Oh yeah. And you see, I very much believe in a Native American way of life. I love to live at one with nature. I'd rather hunt and fish for all my food. I would rather grow my own food. I'd rather live in a small thing that could easily be moved, if I need to get it out of the way, because I don't like to stay in one spot for too terribly long. It's driving me nuts right here. Because when I was in the swamps back before I moved out here, I could just pitch my tent wherever I wanted. So I got that gypsy blood in me now. Not only that, but of course, there's the Viking nature to me, which is what I have the most in me. So that's why I always wear your native people's jewelry because so do I. I wear a Thor's hammer on both my fingers and my around my neck. I've got my bracelet, which symbolizes your when you turn into a man. The only piece of jewelry I have on me that isn't um, Viking is, of course, Green Lantern.
Oh well, I mean, you just have
Nerd.
to you have to include that. I mean, are you
Well,
really Team DC? Because I'm kind of a Marvel fanboy over here, but I
well,
do
I'm
love
kind of
Superman.
both. I'm kind of both. I like both. They have their merits. Superman can kind of kiss my buns, but Superman can kiss my butt. But I like some of
Are
the
you talking about
lesser
the new
known.
film? Because the new film is certainly interesting.
Yeah.
I'm waiting
Um,
here for crypto because my dog is a ringer
oh,
for it.
I'm waiting for Until Dawn
Really?
to come out because I played that video game. I've beaten it before. I killed everybody and then I saved everybody. That was the first 2 times I played it. So I'm waiting to play that game because I want to see what they did with the Wendigos. Because Native American legends like the Algonquins, the Comanches, the Cherokees, all those, they're all included in my book too. There's actually even a Native American tribe in my book called the Chakua, and they are werewolves.
Get
But
out. I'm gonna tell you that if you get an option to turn this into a film, I hate acting, but to play a Native American werewolf, I will gladly be a part of that. Gladly.
and you see, it's only the certain ones. Only the shamans and the braves can become a werewolf because their job as werewolves is to protect the border marches, the realms between the spirit world and our world, because voidlings can come through those border marches, which are those horrible creatures that I showed you. And it's the werewolves' jobs to stop them. And so they're constantly trying to keep men at peace with nature, and because of the main bad guy, Soulless Black, who's got control basically of everybody, he's got everybody hooked on some kind of drug or something. you know the Native Americans are the only ones who aren't. They're the only ones who've got a clear head. So the Chakuan people out of my novel are actually one of the clearest minded people aside from the Knights of the Holy Rose Sanctum, which is where I actually got the idea for my charity. It was originally a part of my book. Now I'm going to make it my actual charity. We're going to have 12 separate chapters. Um, I'm going to add one into the book, because I'm going to have one created just specifically because a friend of mine gave me a really good idea for a new chapter. So, but yeah, that's where the Knights of the Holy Rose Sanctum came from originally. Was my book Blackened Hills, which is actually
That is really cool. I'm speaking to an author right now.
right here. That's the book. And yes, I'm handwriting every bit of it. I'm handwriting it all. So definitely going to be fun. We're going to be reading it tonight. So I hope to see you there, man, for sure.
I am a subscriber. I guess I have to join. Clint. I guess I have to join. I subscribed. We made
All
vows,
right,
you
bro.
and I. We made vows.
What are you doing over here? I have my pills in up over here. You need to be back over here with it as well. Yeah, my medications. I forgot to put them in the right spot. That's unfortunately an issue I have with my schizophrenia. I sometimes put things down places and walk away and totally forgot where I said it.
Your brain is probably operating on several different planes at the same exact time. Do you have, I mean, you have a medical professional which obviously prescribed your medication, but do you have any shamans or anyone who can give you spiritual guidance?
I'm working on learning how to be a Gothi, which is a Viking shaman. I have a book on runic magic and studying the runes because that's usually the first thing you learn is the power of the runes and how to make binding runes, how to bind runes together, how to read runes. I made my first rune set. I've got one in there I made out of elk bone and leather. So those are pretty good. I can actually go grab those. Ah, here's the bag, which I made myself. Inside, you can see the runes. And each rune is carved out of bone.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, you can drop Jin Jin in your channel there, Bubba. Thank you. But yeah, those are what I'm learning how to do right now. So that's why I've been doing some meditation lately, and I've been going out into the woods a lot more. You know, me and my if you go back and watch a couple of my shorts, we actually caught a turtle laying her eggs on the side of the road the other day.
Aw.
Yeah, so we filmed that real quick and like it's a turtle,
Those are the kind of experiences that I want to have. I hate living in Los Angeles because Los Angeles is so emotionally cut off from nature, and it has this reputation for hippies and marijuana use and all of that. But it's so corporate. It's so corporate here. I want
Oh
to move to a place where people are more grounded and just they understand nature.
no, I get you, man. Out here in the swamp, life comes alive, and when you go to the thicket, everywhere is green. It's all green, all
That's right.
and you'll run into hogs, you'll run into coons, you'll run into coyotes, foxes, armadillos. Um, just the other day, we saw when we went fishing for our 5,000 people subscriber special, which I'd been promising for forever. But we went fishing and we saw three snakes. We saw probably 15 turtles. We caught 16 fish. My niece saw a fox off it out in the distance. It's just when spring hits, everything comes back to life, and it just explodes. Because it rains for like 2 months straight, and then all of a sudden it's just bam, everything's alive. And next thing you know, you walk outside one night and it's so cool that the skeeters ain't buzzing, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go build me a campfire. You wake up the next night and you're like, oh god, it's sweltering and the mosquitoes are everywhere. you know Welcome to Southeast Texas, state bird, the mosquito.
They were that large, I suppose they could be called that. That's large. That's large.
I ain't joking.
Put a saddle on that thing.
He'll bite through a leather jacket, be sitting there, and all of a sudden, you little bastard. But yeah, it's definitely something different. I'd love to go to LA just to experience the wildlife out there. You know, um, I know they got some coyotes, they got some cougars and some things like that. But
Oh,
I'm
they
gonna be
definitely have
outskirting the whole
cougars.
city. I'm gonna be outskirting the whole city. And I'm not talking about the cougars from Applebee's.
Those are the ones I was referring to.
That's what I thought. We got about the same sense of humor going on there, so into it.
I always knew that we would get on famously. You know, you've always been such a light, uplifting, and I know you have your own problems and things that you're going through. When you told me about, your heart condition.
I have my own issues, yes, and I thank you so much, my friend, especially for all the support you've given me because you called out my channel a few times on your show. So thank you so much for everything that you've done for me. That's why I really wanted you to come on here, man. I was like, come join the nights, come talk to all my people so they can see you. That way you can get some more subscribers. Because back whenever you were going for mayor, man, I was rooting for you, dude.
There's someone in office right now for mayor, and I'm not going to give up. I dislike Los Angeles because it's a beautiful city if they just let me fix it. If they let me fix the roads, because I have change.org/clear LA smog, where I say simply, let me use recycled materials, the same stuff that you throw away in your landfills, to just make a new road that doesn't break you, it doesn't break your car, and stops polluting because guess what? You're not damaging your tailpipe, dragging it
Yeah,
across all these potholes and things like that. Let me just build you a new road. And change.org/clear LA smog has just been languishing because I haven't been able to reach enough people. And because of my PTSD, I'm not hawking on the street. Please let me fix your roads. But
yeah.
maybe if I can tell people change.org/clear LA smog, because I want to do this nationwide. I know that this is the job of your president to come up with programs like this. He's a citizen. I'm a citizen too, and I say American roads should match the vehicles of today because you ask for more mileage, you get more mileage when you have better roads. When you
You
have
see,
bad roads, you have to
you
think
see,
about how expensive that's going to be to keep your road
I'm
in such disrepair.
I've got an idea, and I'd like to see them work on this more often. You ever heard of hempcrete?
Yes, actually, I have.
Yeah, concrete made from marijuana stem.
Mhm.
Um, I've actually used that stuff before. I've stood there on a brick of it with a blowtorch going full blast, just yakking at people, and never once felt it on the other side of the brick. That stuff is good. I want to see them experiment with that, make it a lot stronger, and then just cash crop legalize, marijuana throughout the U.S. because let's face it, they're going to do it eventually anyway. It's just coming along. Legalize it like alcohol, sell it however you want to do it. I don't care. But that way you got something that is renewable for both paper, road fixing, house insulation that is flame retardant, and a cheap, easy product that you can manufacture quickly and efficiently. You know, so I actually want to see them work on that to make it strong enough to use for highways and stuff like that because it would be so much simpler to just walk up there and drop a little bulb of it into a pothole and drive off. You know, and let it harden.
I
You know,
want to have roads be durable for decades and just say we have smart roads because I'm an engineer. So when I do
yeah.
something, I do it high tech. And what I want to do is I want to
you want
create
you want high tech.
airflow under American roads to keep the smog that comes out of these cars and bring it underground away from our atmosphere because we think of ourselves as caring people, caring parents. We do everything to protect our children, but walking down the street is just as detrimental as sticking their head in an oven. And as a parent, you wouldn't do that. But you don't think twice about walking next to a highway. You don't think twice about rolling down the windows when you're on that road for a long period of time and you want to cool down without turning on the air conditioning. You just do it automatically without thinking. You're damaging your kids' lungs. And I have to say it that way because I want parents to realize that your kids are precious. Love them, respect them, and raise them up. Do something selfless for once and just say, I don't care if you want to do an electric car or a diesel car. Let me just cut through all that nonsense and say, let me just give you a good road. With a good road, it solves all our issues.
Yeah, I totally understand. I completely agree. You know, good roads, an easier system, and we really don't need a lot more roads, guys. You can pretty much get everywhere you need to here in America. We really don't need to add anything else as far as business wise. We need to start worrying about housing people like homeless veterans, homeless people, period. You know, like I mentioned here on the show, a capsule hotel like they have in Japan, the little octagon capsule hotels that look like honeycombs. Just build those in certain areas around the city. Have it to where all you have to do is be a homeless person, walk up to a police officer. May I have a housing voucher? They print it out. You take that voucher, you stick it into the capsule hotel, and it opens up. You climb in, and you have somewhere to sleep for the night.
I think in America we need to grow up a little about defining what the space is because people see apartments as hybrid rooms and you need to separate things. For example, your kitchen needs to be outdoors because the ventilation. Most people cook terribly. They burn water on the stove, which is extremely hard, but somehow a lot of Americans don't know how to cook. So
So, yeah, somehow my
if
ex-wife couldn't cook ramen noodles.
if we had it in our heads that maybe we grill a little bit more, where you at least have the open air to direct some of that smoke coming off the grill away from you instead of using an eye on a stove, it'll be better for your health. It'll be safer in case of a fire, and you you'll just enjoy your food a little bit more because you'll be relaxed. You're eating out in nature. You're eating out on your own property, and
And you see,
these kind of
we
fundamental
have a
changes are just something that would benefit us. It's more of a cultural change instead of just saying, well, just take a smaller room. It's understand what you gain from being more efficient.
yeah. And you see what we have an electric stove just to prevent fumes, and we don't want a gas explosion. So we have
Mm.
an electric stove. Problem is what happens when the power goes out, like you said. So I have an outdoor cooking area.
I had a feeling.
Yep. Spit roast and so if we can't cook, I can cook. That's just how it works. When it comes down to being a wild man, I very much am. I don't have very much experience with people. That's why I didn't think this YouTube thing was going to work. That's why when it's like I'm almost at 1,200 people, I was just like, you know, just blew my mind out, because I thought I was going to come on here and it was going to take me like 5 years to get 100 people, guys. And then y'all ended up loving me to death. And it was just incredible. And I just have to thank absolutely everyone that shows up to all of our videos, to all of Ian's videos, to every content creator's videos. I'd like to thank all of you, with the exception of the trolls. Get the hell out. But anyway, everybody who comes up to support a content creator, especially a small content creator, you guys are heroes to us. You guys pay our bills. You guys make us feel good. You guys make us feel better about ourselves. You drive us, you motivate us, you make us want to be better, because we can't be on this camera and be all shambles and, you know, crackhead, methed out, Mesopotamia. No, 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 no. We got to come on here and we got to be good. We got to look good for you guys. I look the best I can because I ain't got much.
Dude,
But
I am loving your beard. I am jealous. My beard game is weak to look at yours.
yeah, man, I got to trim it a little bit because I got some split end problems right now because the spring came back, the humidity came out, so it went. But I got to just take and trim it down again, then let it grow back out because every time I trim it, it grows a little longer, a little longer, a
Mhm.
little longer. So I can't cut it because it's religious. As a Viking, as an Ostara, I'm not allowed to cut my beard as a man. If I cut my beard, I have to cut my nuts off. So no, thank you. That's what eunuchs were for. Which not very many eunuchs in Viking mythology. If you were a eunuch, you cheated on your wife and she caught you. That's why she carried around a special
Women
blade
were
called a
very, very different back then. You know, there
and
was that
Viking women had
dichotomy
rights.
of tough, beautiful, everything rolled together. You see that
Viking women had rights, which is what a
they
lot
had
of people don't realize.
rights.
They had rights, and what she had a right to was every Viking woman carried around what's called a Moria knife. Mira, Moria, however you want to pronounce it, depends on which side you're from, Iceland or Scandinavia. But Moria knife for Iceland. But you take and they were given this knife, and if they caught their husband cheating, beating on them, abusing their children, or anything like that, that knife was used to castrate him and shave his beard. Yeah, to show he wasn't a man. So I even sent my girlfriend one of them. That's how serious I am about my religion.
I respect that. I 100% respect that because you need to be able to trust who you are having in your life. You need to have higher standards. And what I'm hearing from this story is you don't just give away your power because you chose to invite someone into your life. It's a
Hmm.
very powerful reminder when I hear something like that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's taken a long time to gain control of my schizophrenia. It's been a long, hard road just to get to where I am, and that's why I wear the Green Lantern ring, because his power is all about willpower. and I only function through willpower. Other than that, your boy would be nuts. And I mean, cuckoo, no, because last time I lost control, I wound up in a mental ward in Ohio. Yeah, that was fun. Never again. But that's why I moved back down here to Texas, and I've enjoyed myself. Moved back in down with my friend here and bought my RV. Got my first home, guys. I don't have to live on somebody else's couch anymore. I can just sit on my own damn couch.
This is why it's been so disheartening that I lost my disability claim with the Veteran Affairs, because I want the honor and dignity to have my own house. I have PTSD that is so extensive that I don't even need a trigger. It comes out of me. I remember I was watching a television show of my favorite book, my favorite characters, but it reminded me of the abuse that I dealt with in the military, and I punched the screen. And now I have a broken TV. And all I could think to myself was, I feel so sad and so ashamed of how affected I am. But if they could just give me the dignity
Oh, daddy, your dad needs me, sweetie.
of my own with the benefits to take care of myself, I would
Okay,
at least have my dignity.
brother, I'm sorry. I have to go. My friend needs me. My
Oh,
paralyzed friend.
of course.
Yeah, that's what my niece just came over here for. Shuck, thank you for coming to get me. All right, love you guys. Love you,
Thank
man.
you so
Love
much
you,
for having me.
mama. Love you, papa. Love yourself. Be kind and always find a way to help, guys. See you from the swamp and later from a gator. Check you later, man. Okay, come on. Where am I, Jay?